A BB488 family. It's been a while since I made just a video sort of kicking. Yes, I'm a Patriots fan. I am from Massachusetts. Yes, we are out of the playoffs, whatever. Um, Keep your Patriots hates to yourself. So, yeah, it's been a while since I made a video just kind of talking about whatever's going on. What I want to talk about today is the foundational Black Americans versus ADOS. I want people to understand, and I'm sure this is going to ruffle some feathers, they are pretty much the same thing. It is a splintered cell now because Tariq Nasheed and Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore got into a little row. That was bound to happen. It was bound to implode on itself. Friends of mine, both outside and on Twitter, discussed this. It wasn't sustainable. It was never sustainable because it's too flimsy. I would never in a million years say that African born Americans, American born Africans like myself, because I will never not be an African, aren't due reparations for the hardships and atrocities my ancestors endured. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is this faction, these factions created by these characters ain't it. We all know Yvette is a lesbian and she's always going to put her sexuality first, the way they all do. Antonio was a public defender. He didn't have black people's interest at heart. Look what he was doing for work. I'm not sure if he's still doing that. I don't know a whole lot about him. Tariq is a master hustler. Has he put out some helpful products? Absolutely. People rave about 1804. I tried to watch the first Hidden Colors and couldn't do it because it was extremely pedestrian. And that's not a dig at anybody who found it informative. So people have to start somewhere. I get that. It wasn't for me. I tried. It was just ridiculous. I have Professor Small's number if I want to have a talk with him. I have Dr. Natiri's phone number and just saw her 2 weeks ago if I want to have a talk with her. Don't mean to name drop, but I'm just saying. And then he gave out misinformation, like stating that Africa was named after Cyprio Africanus, when in fact it's the other way around. I get so tired of debunking that one. He took that title after defeating Hannibal in his Second Punic War. There's also a Scipio Germanicus, Germany, they defeated Germany. There's a Scipio Asiaticus, they took that name after conquering a part of Asia. So you get the idea. I'm going off on a tangent here. So back to the FDA ADOS thing. It's all ridiculous. It's divisive, and they spew xenophobic hatred about British blacks, continental blacks, and Caribbean blacks. It's not to say that some of these cultures don't have issues with African. I'll just use that term for lack of a better one, or for familiarity because people like it. I don't use that term when referring to myself. I use black or I use African. But for the sake of argument, we'll use African Americans. They are intent on splitting us when ultimately what is going to allow us to win, if we were ever to win these reparations, would be unity. We would need a unified front, and that would include African nations. They lost people. We are literally their cousins. Literally, we're their family. They lost people. They had people ripped from them at the shores. They didn't endure what we did, what those who we descended from endured in the triangular trade, but they lost as well. And they have an interest in this. And if reparations, and I don't ever see it getting awarded because it can't be quantified, and it can never be a debt settled because we're here now. We've been here for centuries now. And we're going to be here for centuries. I have children. My children will have children. My children's children will have children, and so forth. It can never be paid. And the government in this country just doesn't care about us like that. We see that from our people getting shot down like dogs in the street. So, me personally, I understand Jews got paid, Japanese got paid, Chinese got paid, Native Americans got paid. We won't get that because we're not considered, even though we are part of the fabric of this country. Our relatives built the country. I don't deny any of that. But look at who we're talking about. We're talking about America. So if we were ever to get anything, if we were ever to get something approved for us, we would need help. We would need the help of diasporic Africans. We wouldn't need to separate from them. What ADOS pushes is this fear campaign that Africans who live in America now are going to try to steal our reparations. They've been stealing our jobs. They've been stealing our housing opportunities. They've been stealing our education opportunities. I've never seen that. I am 45 years old, and I've never felt I was competing with a continental African, with a Caribbean African, or British African for a job. The jobs that they do, I wasn't interested in. The jobs that I do, they weren't interested in. I've never felt a competition for housing space or anything else. There's plenty to go around. So it's essentially, I don't know if you guys ever saw that South Park episode where the locals kept screaming, "They took our jobs." And it was basically poor white people and how they view, foreigners or black people. That is what ADOS is. ADOS is that low class of people who looks for somebody to beat on because they're beat on. And it's insane that rather than attacking the power structure or perceived white supremacy, they choose to attack other black people. It's crazy. And while Yvette and Tone may have never, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, even though I think they're slimy. While they may have never intended to incite this kind of, I don't even know what to call it, but it would be on Twitter like daily. I think they sort of planted the seed, but then it propagated to proportions they hadn't anticipated. They planted the seed that Africans are stealing jobs from African Americans, Africans are stealing educational opportunities from African Americans, and housing situations from African Americans. And ADOS Twitter just ran with that. Not all of them, of course. There are some, I know some very good ADOS people who don't see things the way that I do, but I don't feel like they're as analytical as I am. I am very analytical and critical of things like this because I know that ultimately it's not helpful, and it's just more doing the work, us doing the work of perceived white supremacy. If you can keep us separated, you can keep us down. So I guess that's where I'll stop on that. I don't like making extremely long chatty videos. I like to get to the point and then keep it pushing. Peace.